Hi there, I'm Chris, and I'm here to tell you that there is a faster way than going from AutoCAD to Illustrator to create accurate and visually stunning architectural drawing sets. Now, most architects and designers spend hours exporting and importing and cleaning up line work, and then doing it all over again when their floor plan changes. With Rayon, all your drawing styling is done in exactly the same tool where you draw. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I go from a raw architectural plan to a beautifully, fully stylized presentation ready drawing. If you want to draw along, then use the template in the tutorial and check out the link in the description. Okay, so let's get started. Rayon is an incredibly precise tool in which you can draw in different units and import base drawings as DWGs, PDFs, or even scans of original images. So we're just going to show you how to do that. So in the menu, we can go to Import, I can go to DWG, and I can find my DWG here. I'll go to Open. It then takes a second just to convert the model and bring it in. So this is our base level cabin drawing. So it's an A-frame cabin, very basically drawn, and I can use the tool here just to pick two endpoints. Now I know from my original drawing that this is 1.25 meters here, so that's going to be scaling in correctly. So I'll do continue. I'll pick an insertion point just in the middle of my page, and then I can double check that that's come in correctly with the measurement tool, and that's coming up as 1.25 meters. Now you can alter the units in Rayon, which is really helpful. So in the bottom right hand side corner, you click on the little tab here and there are length units. So I can change that to millimeters, centimeters. At the moment it's set as meters, and I can even go to inches and feet. As a UK based architect, I work in millimeters, so I'm going to move that to millimeters, and you can see there that the measurement has now flipped over to 1250 millimeters. So it hasn't affected the actual size of the drawing, it's just how it's now reading. So now that's set up perfectly for me. With the DWG, that has come in on an import layer. So just like with AutoCAD, there are layers, and we have a default layer, which is all our base information, and the DWG information has come out into the import layer. So you can see there, if I turn that off and on, that can hide it. I can also lock it, so when I start tracing with Rayon's drawing tools, it won't interrupt the DWG information, so I can lock that, and again that sits on that layer. The Rayon tools are super fast and precise, and you can introduce things like snapping, guides, and vectors that give you control of the CAD tool, but with the flexibility of a design platform. So I can go into the menu setting and I can go to preferences. So one thing I can do is go to wireframes. So this then flicks the view to something that's more resemblance of AutoCAD. So a dark background, you can start to see the vector lines, and they're actually color coded based on the layer that you're currently on. I could also, if I wanted to, change the overall appearance mode, so from a light mode to a dark. So then everything on the screen has, a dark color. Maybe that starts to help stop my eyes from straining quite so much, if that's your preference. So I can flick that back to the standard view, which is how I like to work. I'll flick the appearance back to light. Another thing that we can do is, in preferences, is introduce a grid. So we can see here that there is now a grid, and with our snapping selections, which are also in preferences, we go down to here with snapping. We're currently got different choices of how we snap to points. So endpoints, midpoints, nearest perpendicular, and obviously to the grid. So, I can very simply start drawing, and these are in, breakdowns of every 200 millimeters is another one of my grids, and very simply start to draw. So again, it's down to personal preference. For the moment, I'm going to turn the grids back off just for clarity. But again, it's a really helpful tool, particularly if you're coming from an AutoCAD background. Okay, so now that our plan is set and locked, we can now start tracing it with Rayon's wall tool. We'll add openings and zones and blocks as we go. Moving forward, let's add a new layer. So we'll call that layer walls. We've got our imported DWG on that other layer, and we've got that locked. So we'll click onto our active layer, and we'll just have a think about the walls that we're going to be introducing. So looking at the DWG below, I can see two different types of walls. So I can use the dimension tool just to check the measurements of those. So we've got a 300mm external wall and a 120mm internal wall. So we'll just very quickly just do 2 example walls up here, copy and paste those. And I want to set up 2 different wall types. Wall types are an incredible tool within Rayon and something I use every time I work in it. They will save you so much time. So we will set that wall at 300. We will save the style. I'll call that external wall. And I can change the visual preference. Now, for the moment, I'm just going to color code them just for clarity, but eventually when we're doing our aesthetic drawing, we can change that color again. So again, I'll change this to a 120 wall. I can save the style. I'll call that internal wall. And again, I'll just pick a color and go from there. So those are our 2 wall types. And in the styles tab, so which is on the left-hand side, we can see we have those 2 wall types there. And again, I can edit those from the style tab. So say I didn't like the orange, I actually wanted it in black, and I didn't like the green, I actually wanted it in a mid-gray. I can go from there. When we start to actually draw our walls, so we can use the pick style, click on that one, and then that will make that our active style. So we'll just go down, create our 4 walls here, and then when we start drawing again, I'll pick my style, and that will flick to the internal wall. And I can speed up the process by using the space bar to repeat the same command. Now at the moment we're not thinking about the openings, and that will come in a second. So again, we can go back to our layer style, and we can hide the plan just to check what we're drawing is all on the right layer. Then when it comes to the openings, so for example, you know, I can no longer see that DWG behind, so maybe black wasn't the right idea. So I can go back into this, I can edit this style, and actually make that a lighter color. And I can set the walls behind the imported layer, and now I can see where the wall openings are that I want to put into my new drawing. Okay, so we can then start populating the drawing with openings. Go to the library and search for meter long window, for example. So nice, clean, basic window, we'll select that, and then that becomes my active opening. I can then click on that, and then every time I go back to my opening tool, so I can use the space bar to repeat the same command, and I can place 3 of those into my wall, and we can then just hide our import layer so we can see them nice and cleanly on the drawing. And again, we can do exactly the same thing. So for the doors, so we can go to the opening, so that will automatically pick up the block that you've used previously, but we just double click on active block, we go to library, and we can find openings and doors. So we can find a simple door, click on that, press select, and again, very simply just place that into the plan, choose our swing direction, and go from there. So now with all our openings set, I just want to show you the zone tool. So the zone tool lives below the wall tool, so we can click 1, 2, 3 to create our 3 different zones. So each of these zones we can tag, so we can call that one living, we can call that one bathroom, and we can call this one bedroom. These will read the inside line of the walls that we've placed, and they will also automatically calculate the area. And based on the unit you've chosen, it will choose a meter squared or square foot. One more element that I want to show you is the annotation lines. So you can see here, for example, in the A-frame drawing, we're creating a vertical line, which is where our sort of cut through is for the floor plan. So I can add a detail line just to create the line of the beams above us and the outline of the total building. So I can go down to the line tool and I can use it to trace the DWG below. I can change this to a dash line, so I can have a selection of different dashes. So we'll go for a dash line. Maybe let's just see how that turns out. Maybe we'll change the scale of that to 5 times, for example. Yeah, that's nice and clear. And then I can I can either just keep drawing as I go to indicate these outlines, or I can copy and paste those lines and go from there. So I'll just finish that off. And now you can see you have that indication of the outline of the building and a potential sort of external space as well. Okay, so now with the base information drawn, let's have a bit of fun and style the drawing. So I can start by editing my wall style. So I can go back into the styles. I've obviously already set up my 2 different wall types. And for this drawing, I want a white solid wall because I'm going to add lots of textures, tones, information to the inside of the plan to really communicate. So I want those walls to be quite simple. So I can go into the fill and I can choose a solid white fill for the external. And again, I can go and choose a solid white fill for the internal. Secondly, we've set up those zones, but now we can start to curate those styles. So again, in the styles tab on the right hand side, I'm going to create a new style. And I'm going to call this timber floor, for example. I can go to the fill and there are 4 different types of fills that we can have. So we can have a solid color. So, as we had before, it's a solid color. We can have a texture, and that has an array of different visual textures based on photography. We can have a hatch, so that's a more sort of architectural element, or we can have an image that we upload ourselves. So I'm going to go to textures, and I'm going to find a timber texture. So let's go for a standard sort of plank, strip plank. I'm going to change the opacity, so knock it back a little bit, say 50%. And I can also change the scale. So say those planks are a little bit small. I can say actually let's double the scale of that. And I can apply that to any of the zones because I'm setting it up as a style. So you can see here in the left hand side under the shapes tab we have timber floor. And I could edit it from there as well if I wanted to. So I'm going to click on the bedroom zone that I've created, and again I'll use the little picker style, and I can click on that. It matches the style of the zone. For the bathroom I want a different style, so again I can go into the save a style. I can call that ceramic tile, for example. I can go into the fill, I'll find a texture, maybe the ceramic small. Yeah, I think that looks okay. And that is set up as ceramic tile. And again, you can see those 2 there. And if at a later date I wanted to go back in and actually say, the timber texture, for example, it's a different texture. The client decided on a different texture very quickly. Any of those zones which are tagged with that particular style will automatically update. So we'll just go back to our original. And very quickly you can see that we're starting to create a very visual and attractive drawing. So just like in Photoshop or Illustrator, we can also adjust these visual styles. So I could go into the tiling settings, so add tiling here, and this will allow me to rotate it, for example. So say I wanted a sort of bespoke pattern of this, I can then go in and change that pattern. So for example, the planks are running at 45 degrees. I can move it around how I wish. And again, from that tiling tool, I can also scale. So I can visually scale if I have a preference rather than doing it in the sort of numerical way. If you can't find a texture that you like, we do have a library of lots and lots of different materials. So say, for example, I wanted a terrazzo floor. So I can go down to libraries, I can go down to terrazzo, and there's a whole array of different textures and patterns set up that I can right click on and I can import into my Rayon document. So again, I then go back into the style, I can edit, and I can find the terrazzo there, for example. So, and then that will automatically upload and has its own patternation as well. And the really powerful thing about Rayon in all of this is that I'm texturing in the tool that I'm drawing in. You know, I'm not going back and forth. I'm allowed to edit and update and move fluidly as I sort of go forward. The other really useful thing is that I can export all of my save styles from the document as well. So if I'm happy with, you know, the line weight, the wall styles, the zone styles, I can share these. So up in the right hand corner, I can go to share and save this as libraries. So I can publish all of the styles that I'm using. So not only I can use them in the future, but my wider team could be using them if they're working on a separate project or on the same project in another model. And that having that sort of level of consistency is really, really helpful. Just having it as, you know, something I can click on and it will automatically update. Okay, so now that our plan is starting to become stylized, let's add some blocks and some annotations to convey a bit more information and life to it. So I can go into the block library, which is on the left hand side again. So we can go to library and we can find some furniture. So we can go to bedroom basics, for example, and I can find a double bed. So this one, for example. And as we've spoken about previously, we also have side views as well and front views. So anytime you see that purple symbol on any of the blocks, that will include multiple views. So for the plan, I can just drag and drop this in. Now we want to populate the living room, so we can go down to living room. We can find a rug, for example, so we can place a rug and a sofa. And you can obviously start to layer up the information and bring life to the drawing. I mean, you can even start to add people. The thing that I really like about the library tool is the search feature. So I could search for person sitting, for example, and I can drag in this person sitting. And they will normally come in on the layer above. And now, you know, you're starting to populate the space and bring some life to it. And it all just starts to help communicate the drawing to the people that are going to be viewing it, mostly our clients. Okay, so I've just spent a little bit of time populating the drawing with a variety of different blocks, pieces of furniture, and people. And there is an absolutely huge array, almost 4,000 different types of blocks already included within Rayon. One thing you can do though is bring in your own blocks. So you can either create them, so draw them yourself, or you can import a DWG and create a block out of that. You can also, similar to the style library, you can create a custom block library. So similar to how we did previously, we could go to share over here. And just like we did with the styles, we can also publish the blocks. So any of the blocks that are existing in this model can then be shared to other projects and other members of the team to use again. So if you have a particular piece of furniture that you like using, or you like to, you know, illustrate your drawings in a particular way, that is really, really powerful. So I just want to add two more elements to the drawing. One is shadows. Shadows can be really, really helpful to help bring a little bit of depth to the plans, and it can be done, you know, incredibly simply. So we can go down to rectangle, for example, and again I can create a style. So I'll call that shadow. I can give a fill to the shape, so I'll make it black, and I can give it a level of sort of transparency. Yeah, and these can continue around the walls. As I said, they're not necessarily that accurate in terms of how it would actually form, but they are super helpful in terms of, you know, visualizing for people and giving an understanding of where the walls kind of sit in relation to the furniture. So you can see there just the beginnings of a little bit more of depth within the drawing. Another thing we can do is start to populate the external spaces. So again, we could look at creating tones or textures externally. So rather than just having a line, I could have, you know, fill regions to these two external terrace spaces. So I can detach that style and I can create a new one. So I can call that external terrace. I'll go into the fill. I can change that to a texture. You know, maybe we want some clay pavers, for example. And then I can pick that style and have that there. And actually looking at that, maybe that's a little bit strong. So I can then, I could either do it from here, or I'll just show you as an example. I can then go into the Styles tab. And again, that will sit amongst our variety of styles. And we can edit it from there. So I can go in, I can change the texture, actually maybe 50%, for example, and I'll knock it back. The final aspect that I just want to talk about is annotation. So again, we're showing the experience of the spaces, but we can also show the sizes. So I can go to dimensions, and I could do overall dimensions, for example, from these spaces. And again, that is set to whatever unit I'm using. So I could change that back to millimeters. And if I decided that actually these annotations are slightly too big, so they overpower the drawing, so I can go into here and then I can go into the annotation style. So I can create a new saved style, and I'll call that presentation annotations, which sounds good. And I'll say actually 100 mil is better. I can then pick that style from that annotation. And again, if I wanted to go back in and change that later, I just go to the Styles tab, and I scroll down to annotations, and you have all your different annotations here. You have presentation annotation down there. And, for example, I could change the color if I wanted to. Okay, so I've just spent a little bit more time finalizing the drawing, adding a bit more texture, tone, and even some information on the background. I just wanted to show you how you might start to populate the external spaces. So I've got a bit of shadow here, and some idea of some stepping stones, for example. I can again go into blocks, and I can find things like vegetation and trees. So we can scroll down to vegetation, for example, and we can start to drag and drop some trees in. And again, I have spent some time updating the section to bring it up to a similar level that our plan drawing is at. And this is when it starts to get really good and really fast, because whenever I can bring a tree in, for example, so I can bring in our tree into our floor plan, I can also bring that same tree into our section or elevation. Because we have this little purple area, I can see that I have a elevation as well. So I can click on that, drag that in, and I know that based on my section line, which is here, that tree is there, that tree is there. I'm even looking at it in the sort of correct scale. So those two things can start to correspond. So it's quick as just dragging things in and going from there. Another task that usually sends people to Illustrator or Photoshop is creating mood boards or materials or FF&E tables. But in Rayon, that process is completely streamlined. You can just drag and drop or copy and paste the images directly from the browser into your canvas with no need to download the files or reformat anything. Let me show you. Okay, so I'm putting together a quick mood board alongside the drawing, and I'm going to be grabbing some reference images, textures, and materials straight from the internet. So I've got Pinterest open on the right-hand side, and I've got Rayon open on the left-hand side. So I'll start by grabbing maybe an image of the furniture that I'm thinking about. So we could say neutral tone wooden leg sofa, for example, for this one. So I can just copy and I will paste that image in, and directly, no messing about, that image comes into Rayon. So I can do a number of things with that image, for example. So I can go to edit image, and I can either remove the background, which is super helpful if I want a really clean page, or I can upscale the image. So this little zoom thing allows me to see the quality of the image, and this one looks quite good, so I don't need to use the upscale, but that is a super useful tool, particularly if you found a piece of furniture, you can't find a decent image. Having that AI upscale tool is really, really helpful. So I can click on remove background, and there it is. So remove the background. I could adjust the exposure if I wanted to, make it a little bit brighter, change the contrast. Click done, and there's our drawing. And that can even sort of sit over the drawing, which looks really good. So we could have our sofa there, for example. I could also bring in textures or colors. So with our color palette, for example, these are literally just shapes. So again, we could, size our circle, and we can change the fill color. So, depending on what I want, I could even pick up some of the tones which are being referenced in my images, for example. Scale that down, I can snap, I can remove that line, for example, and it sits comfortably with the rest. Similarly, I could find another texture that I liked, so timber flooring texture. Let's say this one. Again, I can copy that image, I can paste, I can resize, and I can also crop the image. So I can double click on that and I can change the sort of cropping region for that drawing. So I only wanted to feature a small element of that. Click done. And again, with the layering, for example, I could bring this image with the arrange tool, bring that to the front, and then that sits, with a sort of layered image, as you would kind of expect with that mood board feeling. I can even crop that texture into a circle like we have here with the Boolean tool. And this is all within my drawing tool. Rayon is there for drawing my floor plans, my elevations, my sections, and now I'm creating the presentation drawing all within one tool, all incredibly fast and easily editable. I love creating these mood boards really early in the project, and it really does help communicate the mood and the material visibility, and to have that next to the floor plans really hammers home that sort of communication and gives people a real feeling for your designs. Okay, so now I've spent a little bit more time just refining the drawings down, and we want to turn everything into a presentation ready drawing set. So in Rayon, that is incredibly easy and quick. So this all exists in a model space. So you can see here up in the top left hand corner there are layers, and you can see canvases and you can see layers. So you can see I'm in the model space because it says model there. If we go to the plus, we can go to a paper canvas, and we can create a page. So that will give us the warning there's not currently any paper canvases created. We'll do create page, and there we go. So we can set the size of that page. So say we want an A3 page, for example, and that paper space will always be at 1:1. So that is the physical piece of paper that you're going to be looking at. We can bring in a drawing sheet, so in the library. So bring in an A3 title block, just drag and drop. And with that title block positioned, we can now go into the view. So back to layers, and we can go to new, where we have layers, new view, so from the model. So this will be looking at the model. We'll create that, and it's basically a window into our plan, into our drawing, and we will always be looking at that at a certain scale. So we could say that's 1:100, for example. So we'll click done, and if we hold down command, we can adjust the crop region of our plan, for example. So now we know that we're looking at this drawing at 1:100. And if I wanted to create a new page, I could just do the plus sign, again, create a new page, drag that over here. We can snap that into a nice grid. Again, we can set the scale, so A3. We can copy the title sheet across, and then I can create another view. So again, plus, view from the model, double click into there, and go over to the section. We can set our scale to 1:100, come out of that. Again, press command, and we can then crop our view, and then we have two very attractive presentation pages. So when these drawings are ready, you can share them in an instant. You can export as a high-res PDF or send a live link To export a PDF, we have our sheets set up, and we just go to the menu area. We can go to export, and we can export as images, DWGs or PDFs. So we can go to PDF, and we can click a particular page, and there it is. As our preview, we can adjust the file size, and we can export, and then that will appear wherever we save it. In sending a live link, there's no logins required, there's no download. So clients and collaborators can give you feedback directly just from their browser. So you don't need to export, you don't need to zip files, upload, or chase revisions. It's all just one link and then you're done. So up in the top right hand corner, we have a share button, presentation, and once I click on this tab, this will then provide me with a link which I can then open. This loads the presentation into this link, which you can provide for your client. And here we have it. So our presentation with our front page, and then our series of plans, further out plans with our mood boards, our sections, our closer in sections, and even our FF&E schedules. So all of that accessible very simply via one link. So that's how I go from a raw plan to a fully stylized, presentation-ready architectural drawing, faster than going from AutoCAD to Illustrator, and all within one tool. Rayon saves you time, keeps you visually consistent, and helps you tell your design story clearly from the first sketch to the final board. If you want to follow along, you'll find the template and resources I used in the description. Give Rayon a try and see how much faster your drawing workflow can be. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more tutorials like this, and I'll see you in the next one.